Alright, quiet on the set, everyone. Take one for metalcore band tries to keep the gent riffs going while preying viciously on the styles of the 80s. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and it's time for a review of the new Issues album, titled Beautiful Oblivion. It's their first without their screamer, I guess, if that's what you want to call him, Michael Bond, so a lot of people were very nervous, and probably rightfully so, for the new record. Issues had been teasing the hell out of the fact that this was going to be their heaviest album to date. Well, I should say that Tyler Carter was saying that a lot in interviews, and I'm not exactly sure why he would be spouting that off considering the end product. Was he just messing around? Was he trolling? Or did he genuinely have other material that he created with the band that got scrapped in favor of this more throwback-ish R&B meets gent riffs type sound that they're going for here? I think they were trying to prove that they could do something a lot different without Michael, still having occasional screams from AJ and Sky within the band, but also just taking themselves in a new direction. You guys probably know, Issues and me have never exactly gotten along. It's like when you try to hold the two opposite magnets against each other and they're just like flying off in other directions. I can at times see the appeal why people would be drawn to this magnet over here, but meanwhile, I'm attracted to these other magnets that are on the wall way over here. Yeah, so describing the sound of this record, not exactly the easiest task. You might think so when listening through the album, because it's not all that complicated. I can generally see what they were going for. It's disjointed in a lot of ways. You've definitely still got the staple of the Issues sound, the always R&B and soul-leaning voice of Tyler Carter, which has always been a praiseworthy element of the band. Not that I necessarily enjoy him that much as a vocalist, but I know a lot of people do. This album has that, although he tries to throw in a few curveballs that don't really work all that well. Results definitely vary with the experimentation on this album, because the danceable feelings that they leave you with on a few of the tracks does work kinda well, but also I feel that they tried to just layer on top these gent sounding guitars, maybe a little bit of metalcore in there to remind you of their core sound, but then they throw in just 80s sounding stuff. The guitars on some of these tracks, especially on like No Problem or Without You, Find Forever, just draw from that well way too heavily. It's overwhelming, and I just don't feel any sense of this being new to Issues. It feels like either the 80s or maybe inspirations from the 1975 or other bands that take on this retro sound, except Issues forget to leave out the real personality and conviction. The chemistry between band members is something that I can praise on the album. It seems like they were enlightened in the studio, and I cannot take that away from them. There is kind of an infectious energy, but also repetition and a lack of ideas, a lack of nuance, and the fact that so many of these songs repeat the same formula are all major detractors. There's a good sense of rhythm on this album, and it does stick with me in a way, but some of the songs present a false catchiness. I would say that Drink About You is fun, at least for a little bit, and that's how I feel about drinking. Hey, look at that. Take a few shots, throw them back, we're having a good time. But the next day, you're not going to want to do anything, and I'm probably not going to want to come back to this song. That's actually a pretty good way to describe this album, because even though there's some good tastes in there, I think that a lot of listeners are going to find like, oh, wow, that's the type of liquor I need to stay away from, because I remember that association that I have with that, and I don't want to go through that night again. It's a messy album that rarely lands on its feet for too long, but when it does, it can be a lot of fun. Here's to You, the opening track. Kind of a nice way to open things up. It welcomes you into the world of the beautiful Oblivion. But the opening track actually sounds not bad at all. It kind of has a nice melody to it, and it got me interested enough to see what the rest of the record was going to hold. As I noted, Tapping Out got better and better with some repeated listens. I find this one to have a really catchy melody. I appreciate the screams during the bridge, even though it's not going to shatter anyone's world, most likely. it's still good by Issues' standards, and I know that that's not necessarily a high bar to cross, but it's a fun song that definitely lands some nice notes and hits the sweet spots. However, I'm having a hard time stomaching some of the cuts like Find Forever that just makes me nauseous with this 80s feeling. There's a little bit of a choir on this one, and the amount of like choir vocals on this album, it wasn't needed, it wasn't necessary, it's not fresh. A lot of people are doing it at this point, and it's so overblown that it just doesn't do anything. And especially with these bland 80s instrumentals on this cut, there's nothing here that I could ever come back to. Find Forever is not the only victim there. We also have some tracks near the end of this album like No Problem that just make me a little bit seasick with the way that they kind of dance around some of these ideas that we're all too familiar with. Drink About It remains really catchy. I love the hook on this one, even though I kind of have a love-hate relationship in my brain. I also really appreciate Second Best. It seems that Carter has a lot of confidence on that one, and the confidence is appreciated on a few of the cuts that actually do stand out. I feel that the songwriting and the way that the band have a tightness about them on Second Best, and the best song on this damn album, Downfall, they bring an electrifying synth that I can actually get behind. Downfall feels like a natural progression for them. It does have heaviness about it, but it also has some good songwriting licks in there, the guitar, the overall sense of melody, and Tyler Carter just owning the track vocally. I've been avoiding the landmine this entire time. I've been swerving all around it, but we can't go without talking about track number 10 any longer. It's Flexin'. And it most certainly is a problem. This song, oh man, this is an infuriating song. Easily one of the worst tracks that I've heard all of 2019. This tries to balance several different songs playing at the same time. It's like if you have the radio on in the background, and then Spotify pops up, and then your phone starts playing something, and you're like, oh my god, turn it off now! Pick one thing and try to do that. You're trying to emulate Prince. You're trying to be Michael Jackson vocally, Tyler Carter. You are not at all that. You pale in comparison when you try to do it, and just embarrassing all around. It's like me going to do a trust fall off of a picnic table, and then no one's actually around there to catch me when this song drops into whatever the hell it's trying to do. Well, it's definitely not awful like I expected it to be. I think it's more so just safe and forgettable and very predictable, even though there are some standout cuts. I would recommend checking out my favorite tracks that I'll list in the description down below. Maybe give the whole thing a stream, decide for yourself. I would love to know your thoughts and feelings in the comments section. But for me personally, this is getting a light 2.5 out of 5. Keep in mind that it's all my opinion at the end of the day, so please leave a like on this review. It helps support the channel immensely, and if you're new here, then subscribe and join the neighborhood. If you want to see me talk about Issues again, then click this video here, and then click over here if you want to see another rock or alternative review. Did Issues change up their style too much? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.